Hey, what's up, guys? Ronin Man here. The population of women in prison has been skyrocketing since the mid-90s. And there's a lot of studies about it, and people are trying to figure out why. Anytime you see something change, you're like, why are things suddenly changing, right? What caused this change? Like, obviously humans are humans, right? We haven't changed that much. 2 eyes, 2 ears, hands. We can only run so fast. We eat certain kinds of things. We die at a certain age. What causes whenever you see a sudden change in something, you got to think, wait a second, that's not, something happened, right? There's something real there, right? So women's population has skyrocketed in the last couple decades, and about 780%. Now, people try to explain this, and studies I read were say that the increase in women in U.S. jails is linked to trauma, sexual violence, and mental health issues. So basically things that women can't really do anything about, or they were victim of before they went to prison. Now, we know that people in prison are often victims of different crimes, and they were raised in bad homes. And we know this for men and women, but somehow they're trying to explain this one like, oh, but it's only women. Like, this sudden rise in women was because of sudden rise in violence or something. It didn't make sense. There was no statistics. I'm okay if there's statistics. Like, if men are suddenly violent, like suddenly things have changed for whatever reason, then I'm open to listening to it. But we don't see that in the stats. So I thought to myself, I wonder why women are going to prison. Why are they being convicted? Because to go to prison, you can't just go to prison. You don't just check in like a hotel. You get convicted of something. So I would say, what is the real thing is, why are women being convicted? And women are being convicted. I realized this morning, I read an article about a woman who was convicted, and she was convicted of, let's see, what was she convicted of? What did they call it? Assault and criminal damage. Now, it's a woman. She was 21. She was decent looking. And the article was hilarious because it has all her, Instagram pictures and low-cut tops and bikinis on the beach. It was really almost like bragging about her in a way. But she was convicted. And why was she convicted? She was convicted of these charges because of a CCTV video. So I thought to myself, yeah, whenever I read about women being convicted these days, it's usually video evidence that is convicting women. So then I thought, well, wait a second. Video evidence. Okay, video. When did video become popular? When did it hit the mass market? So I started to look back at when cell phones became popular, and also CCTV videos too, because CCTV was a technology that it was too expensive for the average business owner until just fairly recently. Now it's very cheap. You go to Costco, you can get 8 cameras and digital 24-hour recording for like $600. It's changed. Things have really changed. Wireless cameras, things have really changed. But in the old days, it was like a big deal. It was a huge deal. Any kind of security camera, security system was incredibly expensive, and only banks had them and things like that. And they usually weren't very good either. And when I was growing up, a lot of CCTV cameras were dummies. They weren't even real. And that's what people used to do. Like liquor stores, they would buy these really cheap plastic fake cameras and put them up everywhere. And then criminals would think, this is the beginning of surveillance. They would think it's real, and then they wouldn't commit crimes there. But later on, they figured out, these are dummy cameras, and people commit crimes anyway. And at the same time, the actual real technology became inexpensive and reliable. So things changed. So video rose. You guys start about mid-90s. You start to see both CCTV and video and cell phones. Now, that was exactly when the population of women in prison started to skyrocket. Now, skyrocket is a very relative term, and you always have to look, as feminists do, you have to look at the numbers. Now, what are the numbers? The numbers are 93% of population is still men in prison, even though we know that mental issues, sexual trauma, and things like this, they are all equal, men and women. So men have mental health issues. Women have mental health issues. Men have alcoholism. Women have alcoholism. Men have drug addiction. Women have drug addiction. These things are equal. There's no difference in the sexes. Anybody who runs a rehab or works in this kind of area, they'll tell you quickly that there's no difference. And also, it doesn't rich and poor. It cuts right across, very, very equally. Well, then why are these people not in prison? Over 70% of people that commit crimes are drunk when they do it. So we know that it's equal, men and women, like drinking a lot, having problems with drinking, same, right? We know that there's an increased incidence of violent behavior, different criminal behavior when you're drunk. We know that women get drunk, women buy alcohol. We can see that in the statistics. And we know that they have a problem at the same rate. Now, why are they not convicted? What is going on there? We know that people don't remember things. The reason is because society doesn't want to convict them, basically. And society does not believe men's testimony. So what changed? What changed was video testimony. So video evidence changed everything for women. And now you're saying no matter how, it's basically like this, okay? When you commit a crime, let's say you're drunk and you look terrible and everything, you're covered in tattoos. Well, then when you go to court, everybody knows that you dress really nice, like we saw with Elizabeth Holmes. You dress differently. You put on a different image. You try to look upright and upstanding. Guys wear a suit, right? People cover their tattoos. People cut their hair or brush their hair. They do different things. That's just normal, right? That's what people do. And it's if your basic idea is that women don't commit violent crimes or not sexually violent, it's so easy to let a woman go, But and we see it in the numbers. It's like people just want to let, especially mothers, go. We don't want to convict a mother of anything because then all these other things. So there's two aspects. One is, did she do it? Is she guilty? And then there's another aspect of, would convicting her be good for society or bad for society? You know what I mean? Like there's always that consideration. Are people dependent on her? So that women really get every single aspect. Because one, they're considered innocent creatures, and the next thing is people are dependent on them, children, and then there's an assumption that women are not sexually violent and physically violent. But what's changing all this? What's changing all this is proof. So actually videos are man's best friend. They really are. And this article is hilarious. I'll just quickly go through it. The woman was totally violent. She was beating up her boyfriend in public, in the lobby, breaking everything. She was absolutely crazy. All the pictures of her are beautiful. She looks great. In this article about her being convicted, right? She's got Instagram pictures everywhere. She's like super sexy looking. I think it's funny because the pictures of her real picture and these Instagram pictures are pretty big difference between like how she looks with makeup on, but that's another issue. So one officer said she was agitated, under the influence of alcohol. She was drunk. She was slurring her words, blah, 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 caused damage in the hotel. She lunged at people. She punched people. She cut people. She had a broken bottle of wine. She was like smashing around. Now, even with that happening, now video evidence convicted her, but society still wants to exonerate her, and that's how I want to end this video. Nice short video. And so they used her pretty pictures, okay, her best pictures. And man, if you search drunken man on Rampage, just go look at the pictures that are shown and see count how many Instagram pictures, how many in his underwear, how many sexy pictures of him, how many pictures of him with his suit on, and you're going to see zero. Because every single one, the guy looks like a homeless guy, right? Black eye, looks terrible, unshaven, he looks slovenly. They take the worst picture of the guys. Women, of course, they take the best picture. And they actually wouldn't have convicted this woman, even just a few years ago. The only reason why she's convicted is because there's a video. The video changed everything. Now, the video is what caused people to take the other things seriously. So they listen to the officer when there's a video, right? They listen to the man when there's a video. If there's no video, they're just like, yeah, she was violent, whatever. She's only a woman. She's only, 90 pounds. What could she do? There's all these kind of excuses that let violent females go and cause them to do more damage to children and families and steal things and cause, a negative effect on society. But they're just hell-bent. Even with the Skyrocket, like I say, it's still almost nothing. Women in prison. And there's videos about how it's unfair and the gender disparity in the rise of female prisoners. Get this. They're not even saying they're not even looking at the numbers of 93 and 7. They're just saying women's prison populations are rising faster. That's gender disparity. They're not saying women are all let off the fucking hook. We all know that, right? Everybody knows that. I had one time, I had a girl, and I can't remember what she did, but she did something where I was not happy with her. And she had flown up to see me. She had flown up to Tokyo. And so I just said, look, I'm not happy. I'm going to go to my friend's house in the countryside, and you can go home. And she grabbed me. She grabbed my hands. So I couldn't move. And I was surprised because this girl was pretty small, right? But she was strong, right? And so I was able to die, but it was still a friendly feeling. We were laughing, it was serious, but it was you know that kind of vibe when it's going on. I wasn't angry, she wasn't crazy angry. It was she was half smiling and she was grabbing my hand. She's like, "No, don't go." And I'm like, no, because I had strict rules about these things. I'm like, if somebody came to my house, acted in a way that I wasn't happy with, I wasn't going to be angry. I wasn't going to do anything. I was just not going to be there. So I was like, I'm going to my friends. This weekend is over. She had flown up to see me. So I called the police somehow I dialed the number, and the police answered. It was the only time in Japan I ever called the police. And I said, I speak Japanese. So I said, look, I'd like to report a crazy girl. And when I said that, okay, everybody started laughing in the police station because I must have been on speakerphone or whatever. And they started laughing. They're like, the guy's like, okay, what happened? And I said, well, she's holding me. She's holding I can't move. If I move, I'm going to have to throw her because she's holding me so hard. I can't move. And he said, And I said, here's my address and everything. And he said, we're not going to go there. And I was like, why not? And he's like, still laughing. He's like, well, has anything else happened? I'm like, no. And I'm like, but she's holding, I can't leave. And then I said to him, am I allowed to hold her? Can I grab a woman and just hold her? So she can't move? She calls the police and I'm holding her? Is that legal? And then he was like, well, no, you couldn't do that. Well, I said, well, she's doing that to me now. Why can't I, why is that not illegal? And they started laughing again. And I was like, okay, this is not going to work. So I said to the girl, I came up with some excuse, and we walked to the station. And instead of walking to the station, we walked to the police station. And so I said to police, we sat down in the front of the station, and I said, they have these little tables there in Japan at the Kobans. And I said, this girl, I want her to leave my house today, and, she's not leaving. And, and the police said, okay, well, they got her a cup of tea or whatever. And then they started talking. And I said, look, I got to go outside and get some cigarettes. I don't smoke, but I had to get some smokes. And I left her in the police station. And then I went to my friend's house in another prefecture. Had a really nice weekend, actually. But she was angry about that. And I remember she called me from after she got off the flight back home. And she said, basically, I met a new guy on the plane. And she put him on. The guy's like, oh, yeah. Because this girl's really super hot. This girl was so fucking hot. Jesus, she was hot. And the guy's like, yeah, well, we just basically just hinted they just fucked her in the airplane. And he put her back on. And I said, oh, okay. I said, hope you guys, she was trying to get me jealous. And I was like, oh, I hope you guys have a good time. It sounds like you're good at making friends, All right. Yeah, well, okay. Well, see you later. And I hung up, right? So that wasn't the reaction she wanted, right? And so the next week she called, and she was super nice, and she flew up, and we had a great time, super romantic weekend, fucked all weekend. It was great. And she was a kitten. It's all good. And I was happy that it worked out that way. But I wasn't going to put up with it. And I also wasn't going to get jealous or crazy because it's like, there's no point in this stuff. Right? I'm like, nah, this is whatever, you know. That stuff is like, okay, yeah, whatever. You know, like it's hard to get under my skin. I just don't. It has to be pretty fucking evil before it can get me pissed off. And that's my way of handling things. And girls knew that, and that was partly why I think they like me, is because I wasn't getting all emotional and crazy. And like a lot of guys, like they secretly have a very emotional, you know. And I just wasn't like that. So I was like, yeah, whatever, you know, you like this other guy and go with him, you know, fucking fine, you know. I got to get out of here, go to the gym, you know. And that was very effective for me. But it was amazing because she was doing something illegal. I called the police. I said in clear Japanese what was happening, and the cops wouldn't do anything. They just won't. Guys will not convict girls. Now, if they would have seen her, they really wouldn't have convicted her because she was beautiful, this girl. She had that Asian hair that, you know, like the kind of hair that they have in the dolls, whenever they have the Asian dolls, where they have hair down to their ass. It's like straight, clear black. She was so beautiful, this girl. Really stunning. She was stunning from behind. She was stunning from every angle you could think of. Face, body, breasts. There was nothing on this girl that was like, you know, there was always, usually most girls, there's something about them. It's like, and actually French guys like that. They like when there's one thing, like the girl's got a hair lip or something. French guys are hilarious. But either way, so guys we don't want to commit girls to prison. Nobody wants to do that. There's a lot of excuses. All these articles, you know, here's the quotes. They gave her like her own microphone to talk in the end. She said, can you imagine this? She's convicted of assault, okay, and battery and destroying property and everything. And then they're giving her the last say in the article. Convicted, okay? Convicted. And she was convicted on video evidence that was proving that she was the violent one and nobody else was doing anything, okay? That was the other thing. The video was her being violent and everybody trying to avoid her, okay? So imagine that. Now, here's her quote. There's 4 of them. I can't remember a lot of what happened. Okay, so she was in a blackout. But I do remember Alex, her boyfriend, shouting at me and pinning me down on the bed. Okay, so she remembers this. Even though she doesn't remember what happened, she remembers that. Okay? All right? That's very, very suspect because of everything we know about drinking, alcohols, and blackouts. I was terrified and vulnerable, and he was very aggressive. What does a woman need to do to not be terrified and vulnerable? Like, does she need a nuclear weapon? Like a machine gun? Does she need to knife people in the back, push people off buildings? Like, when does society finally give up this narrative that women are all vulnerable and that men are all aggressive? Like, what does it take? Like a video, even with the video, convicting this is what I'm trying to get at, is the video convicted her. So she's going to get paid whatever sentence it is, which I'm sure will be light. But either way, she was convicted, has a record. But even then, the journalist is trying to let her off. The journalist is trying to, you know, make it look like it was not her fault and he was the aggressor. It always goes back. It can never be her. It can't be her. He was very aggressive. The guy was defending himself, right? I have a good job and I work hard and I like to think I'm a good citizen. I've never committed a crime. Now, this is a common reaction of criminals because we all start and end. Like, what is, you know, like we do something for the first time, right? She's obviously is the first time she's been convicted. So it's the first time. It's the first time it's been public. First time on video, naked, breaking things, being a psycho. Yeah, okay. Now, would you believe this person if they told you, if a man said, I've never done this before, I would never do this, you know, I didn't even do it this time, like actually she did it to me and then that frustrated me, so I did this, but I actually didn't do it because she was scaring me. You know, if a guy said that, people would be like, what the fuck are you talking about, dude? Like, it's on video. Like, you're right there. You're totally psycho, breaking shit, scaring everybody. Like, what the hell's wrong with you? How can you say you were vulnerable, intimidated? That doesn't make any sense. But even then, even with the video, even with the conviction, people are trying to let her off the hook, and she could have got off the hook. And probably, like I say, the judge will essentially let her off the hook with a light sentencing, is very likely because men and women are not convicted of the same crime even with evidence, the same amount. So the rabbit hole goes so deep on this one. So it's like they want to let her go. Every article about women in prison is like, women in prison doesn't help society. It's negative. It doesn't help women. Like, and women, basically it's like, it's not even like, do women commit crimes? Because now we're starting to see with video evidence. But even then, it's like, even if they do, even in the rare cases when they do and they're caught, 7%, even then, they shouldn't be punished. They should be helped. They need a psychologist, right? They need some kind of medication. They need some kind of support, right? Instead of, why do they need support and men need pain? It doesn't make any sense. The whole thing doesn't make sense. So the next one, I felt like I was defending myself in all honesty. Okay, so we know she's so honest, right? Yeah, we believe her, right? And I felt he did hit me as well. Okay, now there's a video of her hitting him. There's a video of her swinging a wine bottle, breaking shit in the hotel, assaulting him numerous times, assaulting other people, the office, everything. She's like totally violent psycho. And she says, I felt he did hit me as well. So even though there is no evidence he hit her, she was not hit. It was on video. The officers were there. It was in public. He did not hit her. The journalist still allowed this quote, I felt he hit me as well. I felt. Now, she didn't remember. Remember, she was in a blackout, so she doesn't remember what she did. But I felt. I'll leave this video on this one. And it's important to understand not to get too upset and to look at these things rationally. And as a man, as a woman listening to this podcast, you have to understand that men and women together, as Mao Zedong said, women hold up half the sky and men hold up half the sky, is the unsaid thing. And so we need both of us. We need a mother to be born. We need a mother for milk. We need a father. Is half of our DNA. Everybody on the planet, every feminist is half male. A man created her, right? A man supported her. A man was crying and took her to the hospital and made sure she could eat and she could walk and tie her shoes. We are all a product of both men and women. And even I thought about this too, is that it's even deeper than that, because you're a product of your uncles, your aunts, your neighbors, your parents, your friends, your teachers, but you're also a product of millions of years of evolution and other women helping you, other men helping you. We survived a miraculous journey to even be here. The fact that you're alive is a fucking miracle after all the species extinctions we've seen. So you're alive, razor thin margin, like you barely made it. That's very important to understand, is that your life is a gift and you barely made it. And the only way you made it was the support of men and women throughout history who supported you and your ancestors. So I want people to know that my basic opinion is that criminals should be convicted, men or women. And video evidence it seems like our society will only accept video evidence as a way to equal the playing field. And I'm not saying equal like things need to be equal. I'm not saying that. I'm saying like, if you commit a crime and it's not on video and you don't go to prison, or you commit a crime on video and you do go to prison, that's not right because you committed the crime. So we need to start to, if we want to fix the society that we're in, we need to start to convict criminals for the crimes they commit. And video evidence is one of the best ways. So if you can think of anything else you want to add on this, what you should do step by step. I know I've recommended people using video cameras in their house before if it's legal in your area. But just keep this in mind, is that video evidence is so many guys have been exonerated from false charges by either DNA evidence or video evidence. These are two things that cannot be argued. And these are two things that have helped innocent men not go to prison. And they've also put guilty men in prison, right? And it's the same thing with women. Let's take away, the criminals are getting away with terrorizing the population. We see it now with Uber videos. Thank God Uber has a video in the car. We see it, women like punching the guy in the face, drunk, okay, and then begging him to hit her, and then saying, I'm going to convict you of sexual assault. Like, we see that on video now. So now there's evidence of things that guys have been saying for years. So video evidence is your friend. I hope you don't go through these kind of things. I hope this is not happening to you. I hope you never encounter this. I don't. And I think that the best way to stop this type of thing is to convict violent criminals. That's the key thing. You got to convict these guys and girls. You have to. That's the way that you eliminate this from the possibility of happening to you, your children, your friends, right? Men or women, let's go. Let's rock and roll. Hope you guys enjoyed that. Ronin Man signing off.